Advisory Board, Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. And Lori, do we have a quorum?
Member Witkowski,
Here.
Member Vale,
Here.
Member O'Brien,
Here.
Member Myers,
Present.
Member Green,
Here.
Member Dowdy,
Here.
Member Hanson,
Here.
and you have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I'll call it to order. And we're going to start with a moment of silence. And today, quite a few things going on around in the world, but one of the big ones is the Ukraine, the people of the Ukraine who have been forced to protect their way of life, and the suffering that comes out is a heavy cost. So let's just take a moment of silence. All right, thank you. And Member Green is going to start us off on the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much. So now is the time that we have our member and liaison announcements. And before I start going around the room, I just wanted to let everybody know with your outreach groups, if you have anything that your outreach group would like to add to the agenda items, such as paid parking item, marine services item, let's keep it to those agenda items. And if you just have anything specific to your outreach group, we also have the standing agenda item, which is our last thing for the evening. So anybody have like current events or other items to share for announcements, I will start that off. Let me see, just not forget anybody. Jeremiah, you are first up.
Yeah, good evening. Let's see, don't really have a whole lot. We did, the commercial fishing organization did meet last week with members of people for British Petroleum, BP, and a company called Equinor. And they are owned by the country of Norway. But in any case, they're partnering up on a bid for this area, for the wind farms. So it's just, it's a strong possibility, given the two of them working together, that they will be our neighbors in the future. Just wanted to let you know, the meeting was just a meet and greet. Nothing much was established, but I'm sure we'll be having a lot more meetings. So. And let's see, yeah, very shortly, I hope in the next week or two, there'll be a couple of signs down at the Embarcadero, just the small and interpretive signs. One of them will be at Nick's bench. I'm very excited about that. Finally, it's been long overdue. There you go. I think that's the picture. Yeah, sure, he's good deal. Did you supply the picture?
No, but I've kept it with me. It used to be in GAFCO, and so now it's always in my office.
Oh, okay. I think that might be the picture. Good. So that'll be finally coming to the waterfront. It's pretty exciting for everybody, I think. And then there'll be another interpretive sign down at the anchor at the courtesy dock. Yeah, like that. But pretty exciting. And as far as I did have a call. So I haven't taken any classes around the waterfront lately, but I did have a call from Cal Poly, or email from them yesterday, that I responded to for a tour from Cal Poly, a bunch of kids studying marine biology and stuff. So. But I guess that's about it. That's coming up that won't be till April. Okay, that's about it for me.
Great. Thank you, Jeremiah. All right, next up is Member Dowdy. And it says Dowdy.
I
Yay.
know, somebody changed my name. Let's see, I feel as though we're getting spring on our bayfront. I'm starting to see small anchovies in the bay, which is always a good sign. Some of the pelicans are coming back in. That's another good sign. We had some pretty good tidal runs back and forth. And 2 weekends ago, we had our Big Bad and Ugly surf contest. It was over 160 people in the contest. I was managed to make it to the finals, so that was pretty good. So we had a lot of fun. A lot of people enjoyed it. And then last weekend, they had the World Surf League had their contest there, and that was well attended also. So we're enjoying our area here. So that's it.
All right, thank you so very much. All right, next up, Member Vale, please. Microphone.
John is moving around his hands.
We can't hear you.
You're muted, Chris.
There you go.
You'd think I would have found that sooner. Not much is going on. I have had coincidental input from Kiwanis, Rotary, and Quota International. I've given talks to all three. And the talks I give start with the Morro Bay Maritime Museum, of course. That's the initial call. But what I found is that these same people who are interested in the museum are interested in what's going on in town. So it's been kind of fun to sort of interface with old citizens and new over where we are and what the harbor board might be up to and what the future of the harbor is, and to let them know that yes, actually stuff is being worked on, and yes, they can't always just complain about the bathrooms. So anyway, there's been some interaction citywide, and we've invited all of these groups, because we live in Morro Bay and the weather's so beautiful, to have their luncheons down on the waterfront instead of in Los Osos or uptown someplace else. See if we can get these groups a little closer to what we're talking about. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. And Member Green.
Thanks. I think I'll mention two things. One's probably more Jeremiah's department, but I did attend the Maritime Museum's most recent meeting about HarborFest, which is more of it's encouraging what they have going with Bonnie and the group, kind of starting from scratch. Jeremiah had some great input at the meeting. I'm not necessarily affiliated, other than I was just an interested citizen attending the meeting. And it's really encouraging how they seem to want to sort of start from scratch and take it back to how things used to be, rather than more of a kind of blown up tourism event. So I think they've tentatively picked a date, the second or third weekend in October, to have a smallish event centered around the dirt lot near the Maritime Museum. If anyone else wanted to add something to that, by all means, add something to that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I'm on the Public Benefits Subcommittee of the Planning Commission, and this may come up loosely related to finance ad hoc, but the subcommittee has submitted its report to planning staff. Yet it was potentially going to be a harbor item at some point, but staff has not yet published it in terms of the planning agenda. Public benefits subcommittee is generally putting together a kind of public benefits menu from which large scale developers can proactively choose public benefits items as part of their project. And certainly Vistra's the biggest project we could imagine. And so Vistra was used as sort of a case study there. And the subcommittee, as well as, well, to some degree, Planning Commission, the subcommittee may be meeting with the Vistra subcommittee of council in the coming weeks here. We don't have an appointment set up yet, but trying to get people on kind of on the same page about what everyone's working on. And as I find out more, I'm happy to report back. That's it.
All right, wonderful. And next up is Member Myers.
Yeah, most of the HAB work I did for this time period is going to be covered in the various subcommittees later in the agenda. The only thing of note is the last Planning Commission. I think Sean was on that as well. There was some discussion about the Harbor Walk area that's right behind Stacks there. So it was quite interesting to hear Mr. Geo and his person trying to get that property. There was a big discussion about the gate, whether that should be open or closed, and whether they were complying with that. I don't know, Sean, if they never really came to a conclusion on that. I didn't feel like they did.
Yeah, I don't want to add anything more. You can
Okay.
watch, maybe watch the meeting when it comes up on YouTube.
Yeah.
It was interesting though.
Yeah, I wasn't sure that they were going to, it didn't appear that anything was really going to change there in the short term, at least based on the Planning Commission. So it was a little disappointing. But yeah, beyond that, it'll be covered in the other topics. Chris, you have your hand up. You have to come off mute though, sir.
I ran into Mark Togmazzini the other day, and we had a long talk about things. And in our last meeting, we talked about the pathway, waterfront walk, going down past his place. Not only is he in complete agreement with that, sort of pass through with some signage that we discussed at Dockside. He gave me the impression he already thought it was a dumb deal. I'm kind of curious as to why we were still talking about it, and I had to look him straight in the face and say, I don't know, I wasn't here last year.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so as we tail off towards the Harbor Patrol and Coast Guard, it seems like it's all pretty much in line with what we were talking about,
Yeah,
unless there's an issue with Geo.
Yeah, this is the spot right behind Stacks.
Right.
Little gate there, but yeah. Anyway, nothing else, Sharice, that I have.
All right, thank you. Okay, that takes us to Member Witkowski.
Hey, sorry, it's a little loud here. Two things I wanted to call out are the Friends of Morro Bay Library are having a library sale March 19th at 10 a.m. And also, for if you have kids who are interested in beach safety and fun for the summer, the Morro Bay Little Guards signups have opened up.
All right, thank you. Okay, then that takes it to me, which right now the Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce is having their annual gala, and the annual gala is called Morro Gras, down by the Bayou. It's going to be really fun, and there's I was just informed today that there's going to be a game, kind of a raffle called Heads or Tails, in which there's a really grand prize to win, and beads will be given out. So if you haven't got your ticket, you can look into it. I know it's pretty almost full, but there might be a couple more tickets, but it's destined to be a really fun event. And then the other thing is Friends of Morro Bay is fundraising for the lifeguard tower. And so they were on KSBY. Eric was on KSBY last night, right? And so that's all going on, and I wish them luck. And if you know of anybody, direct them there to help put that together. So Next step would be presentations. We don't have a presentation. So I want to let you guys all know that presentations are, a great way to get our outreach groups to come and speak. And so if there's anything that they, want to talk about or bring forth that affects the harbor, if you can reach out to them and ask them if there's anything that they would want to share and have their voice heard in a presentation form. So once we are live, I know that we've been talking about a couple different ones that sound exciting to me, like wildlife coming and they bring animals with them. So hopefully we'll be in person soon and we'll get to have one of those. I wasn't on the board the last time that they came. I know maybe Jeremiah, Jean, you might have been here. So that should be fun. But any ideas? You got 2 months to reach out and see if anybody has any other presentations. And it doesn't have to be just your outreach group. It could be, the Harbor Festival, Oktoberfest, Harborfest, something like that. So it's welcome to, bring it into possibilities and let me know. And Eric and I can put it on one of the future agendas. Okay, so public comment pursuant to Assembly Bill 361 and Government Code 6, Section 54953. This meeting is will be conducted telephonically through Zoom and broadcast live on Channel 20 and streamed on the city website. At this point in time, community members are encouraged to submit public comment at this time. And James, do we have anybody in the queue that would like to make a public comment now?
No, I don't see anyone.
Okay. Alrighty. So that takes us to our consent calendar. And so we have item A1, which is the approval of minutes from the Harbor Advisory Board meeting held on February 3rd. And the recommendation is to approve as submitted. And then we also have A2, Harbor Department status report. Would anyone like to pull either of these items at this time? Not seeing anyone. And then, so forgetting myself, do we need a vote or should we open it for public comment? Lori or Eric? Or do we need to just take somebody needs to make a motion?
I would just make a motion.
Okay, is anybody going to make a motion to approve as submitted?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Perfect, okay. So do we have to have a roll call now?
Yes, I'll take roll call.
There you go.
Member Witkowski,
Yes.
Member Vale,
Yes.
Member O'Brien.
Yes.
Member Myers,
Yes.
Member Green,
Yes.
Member Dowdy,
Yes.
and Member Hanson.
Yes.
All right, your motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the next thing on our agenda, business items. We have item B1, which is update from the Parking Management Paid Parking Ad Hoc Committee and the recent activities. So I'll hand that over to the chair, which is Member Myers.
Let's see. So we were hoping to get an update from the city on the Walker study. When I talked to Scott, one of the two Scotts, Scott Grant, it was imminent, but Scott Collins told us that it had been delayed some time, so it wasn't clear when we were going to get the update from the Walker report. So just have notified the rest of the ad hoc rest of citizens that that it's coming, but we haven't had a chance to review it. A couple of the ideas that actually came up from the other committee members, we didn't actually get a chance to meet all together. One of the areas that we avoided during the last study that we did, or the work, was strictly looking at parking in and around the Embarcadero. That's where it's the most crowded. We specifically avoided the rock area just because of the coastal commission, and it's a different set of politics over there. Both member Vale and Hanson actually, in chatting with them about a week ago, said, if we're after, if it's about revenue, maybe we ought to reinvestigate parking at the Rock. It has its own set of issues, but to be honest, it's less complicated than parking at the Embarcadero. And so that was something that we thought that we ought to explore before we get together next time, is do a similar type of study, get community input, try to get in front of some of the issues that would be encountered there. So I'm going to pause there. I know, Sharice, if you wanted to add anything to it. I know you were the one who brought this up to my attention, and Chris did pretty much in the same day.
Okay, right. So in regards to the Rock, I'm just going to start from the beginning of my notes just so I don't miss anything. But in this last month, I've been spending a lot of time talking to different citizens, passing out the stickers that we made that show, the benefit of purchasing items on the Tidelands property go to benefiting the health of the Bay. And while I was doing that, I was getting feedback on a lot of different topics, but the hot button one was parking. And as far as that goes, I felt like there was about a 60-40 split with who was for it and who was against it, meaning 60 were against it. But as I mentioned, different things that the Harbor Advisory Board suggested as far as implementation, they came more around and were more like 30% didn't like it and 70%. Well, if it's like that, I'm good with that. But it all was based on the method of how it was implemented. A lot of the things that people brought up was they wanted free parking close by, not super far, and they wanted it safe because they are concerned about employees and themselves leaving late at night. The Embarcadero gets really dark, and and it's not necessarily a scary place, but darkness is scary a lot of the time. So free parking, not a huge increase in price for parking. Like Pismo is like what, $9 an hour or something insane right now. That they wanted a easier system, something that makes it pretty explanatory. With SLO putting in their new meters, people are pretty confused about it and it's frustrating. So they just avoid coming down to SLO now. And then they also suggested short periods of completely free parking. And then another mention was if they do a pilot, that it must measure the success and have guidelines of how it is that it was successful. In other words, like, does it do this? Does it, an actual unit of measure that shows that it was successful rather than just putting it in and saying, hey, we made some money and we're putting it back in. So I did talk to Scott Collins yesterday, and he said that the Walker study is currently not in a contract and that they're working on putting it together and what that contract would entail. I did bring up the things that you were mentioning as far as like the rock study, and he thought at first he was thinking, no, let's just do the city, the metered parking or however it is that it's going to be put in. Let's do that first, and then it made more sense to maybe just do it all at once rather than separate them. So that's a possibility that they actually could do both of them at the same time. But at the moment, City Council seems like they want to just leave the rock alone and try and move forward with the city. But they might change their mind because I'm going to talk to them about it. So I did also hear that coastal staff has been in contact with members from the city of Morro Bay, and they're thinking that it's quite possible that this can actually go into effect, that we won't see as much of a a negative response from them that we were expecting. So I just wanted to let everybody here know that a lot of the times we're like, oh, we're not going to even do it because it's just such an uphill battle that it's not worth the time. But it sounds like they're a little bit more amenable than they've ever been before. So that's a possibility. So one of the things that I want people to talk to their outreach groups, this is by no means all of our opinions, it's just a concept. And so you can think about it, and we're not going to really discuss it today, but just think about it and talk to outreach groups if you want to. So the idea is, and it's nothing new from one person, but it's just taking all of the things that I've talked to everybody about and taking their feedback. So I think that we could come with a really good solution to parking at the Rock that makes everybody, as many people as possible, happy, and does what we're supposed to really be looking for, which is a revenue for the budget and for the public benefits that we have or need to maintain and put together as far as the harbor department goes and the Rock recreational area. So here's the idea. That there would be a kiosk. I know Eric's probably rolling his, well, anyway, Coleman Park, right before you turn off to the paved area, that there could be a kiosk in the street, and that kiosk would have a control arm that would come down, and then there would be one-way spikes on the other side, and that would help control traffic going in and control traffic coming out. And as they were approached, there would be a $2 fee, and it would be free for everyone with the 93442 address on their driver's license. That would mean that those individuals already pay property taxes for the city of Morro Bay, so it's not, discriminating against anyone, which is a big plus for coastal. And anyone can buy a permit. I'm just making ideas or concepts here, about for $100 a year. So if you have a surfer and slow that frequents it, they can come and have it, and they would have a sticker or some type of permit that they could show in their window and just go straight on through. And then if you have a 93442 driver's license, you can buy an annual $10 sticker, so you can just come on through without having to stop and show your ID at all times. It would feasibly be only operated on weekends from 9 to 6 and summer months. And the control arm would be up, the teeth would be down at all other times. So it would be free for all of the other times. In 2018, there was a geo-tracking study done for all of the people that were out of the county that visited the Rock specifically. And there were 3 million people. And knowing how much we've increased in visits from outside of our county, it's amazing how much could possibly be, received from from people visiting that could be used for health and safety of the Rock recreational area. It could go towards the lifeguard program. A walkway to Widow Walls, the Coleman Park public benefits that we all want. And then we also, and sanitation. And then we also have an issue with overflow and how it gets really congested at the bottom of Beach Street on the weekends. And if we were able to have traffic go over the bridge that is by Task A Beach and put some spikes on there, so it'd just be one way and it would be one way out, that could actually help divert the traffic, and it wouldn't be so congested at the bottom of Beach Street anymore. So anyway, I know that there might be some holes, and I'm looking for more feedback, and then eventually we might be talking about this if I get the green light from council, and think about the pros and cons of those things, or how we can make something better, or what we like and what we don't like, and move forward from that. But this hits all the buttons. It hits the outreach buttons. It hits the revenue seeking, it obviously the paid parking. So there's a lot of benefits, and I think it would be an easier, faster, efficient, and more lucrative thing that we can do to benefit the city of Morro Bay and the public area of the Rock recreational area. And I see that Mary has a question. Go for it.
Not a question, just like kind of a comment. I've been like very turned off by some of the previous proposals, and how they compared against some of our goals, but I think that's a great starting point, Sharice, and would love to work with you on that.
Thank you. And Member Green.
A couple quick questions. The first is, you mentioned, this is not necessarily related to the parking, but you mentioned that you hand out something to encourage people to support Tidelands Trust businesses. What does that look like? Is that like a flyer? Where's that coming from?
Eric, do you have one handy? It's a decal. It's a decal that you could put up in the store windows or the restaurant windows, and I designed it and just try and show that, you know, the Tidelands properties pay a little bit more for the rent, and that rent goes to the harbor department, which, you know, takes care of sanitation, roads, dredging, you know, helping boats and all the hazardous, anyway, it goes to a lot of things, and so it's nice for the public to notice that.
I totally agree. Is there a way to point out which properties do pay into the harbor fund, like percent gross wise, and which ones don't, or is it just a universal blanket? Just anyone go to any business on that side over there?
No, I'm only giving it to the ones that are giving to the harbor department. In fact, Giovanni DeGaramar, he has part of his business is on private land, and then he does have the fuel dock, and so he got one. So yeah, it only goes out to the people, and I'm hoping to do a QR code on one of the panels that talks about this, because on our development, we're going to have two historical panels, and one of them is about the Morro Bay businesses and what it is that the proceeds go to, and there'll be a QR code that does a little bit more explanation to people visiting.
Yeah, I think that distinction is important, because I think you're doing all the right things when it comes to the people that are paying into it, and getting everyone to support those specific people. Regarding the talks that you have with Scott Collins, is that like where does HAB fit into that, and at what point are you speaking for yourself versus HAB, and when do we sort of like push something like a formal plan forward to council? Is that something that we do at the HAB level? Like, because this is a subcommittee, right? Or an ad hoc committee?
Right. Well, the subcommittee, the paid parking, as far as that committee goes, I've talked with Cal, and Cal has talked to Chris. We didn't have a formal meeting this time, but we all agreed that we should pursue answering that question, because we were asked at the beginning of the part of this subcommittee. So we don't feel like we're totally going out of our area, but I did bring it up to Scott as far as moving forward with it, with the subcommittee. So I mostly had my HAB hat on that meeting. It was just a quick 20-minute, so.
Okay. Chris, you had a question? Sorry, Sean, I didn't interrupt.
Sean, were you done?
No, I had one more of a statement. I want to kind of echo what Mary had to say, is that, you know, I'm generally on the side of resisting this particular area on the paid parking, but I think the way that you presented your plan this time around was as close as we've gotten to something that could be palatable. So I think you're doing good work and headed in the right direction. Right.
Thank you. On that note, and I'll go to the next one, but I do want to mention that right now we have a lot of situations where there's, you know, trying to get money for infrastructure by an initiative, and we tried to do the RV parking and that didn't work. The money has to come from somewhere, and the Embarcadero businesses are paying as close to Higuera Street rents. You know, that's high, and we can't do that anymore to them. We've already added the 1% for the sales tax, and a lot of people are, you know, typically against property taxes. It's been a hard sell, but it, you know, and anyway, so we need to get the money from the people that are using the resources that we need to take care of. And knowing that 3 million people in 2018 came directly to the Rock and used the bathrooms, threw away their trash, used the roads, and could benefit a lot more by a better area, that to me is making the person pay for it that's using it. And I can handle that. So I think most people can.
Therese?
Okay, hold on. I'm looking.
I think
So
Chris
Jean,
had
were
a
you
question.
next? Okay.
Chris had his hand up for a while, sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna go Chris first and then Jean.
Okay. Quickly, did you say that the Coastal Commission has indicated that they're considering easing up on that business? That both Scotts told us that the Coastal Commission doesn't like to give exceptions in this parking argument.
Okay, so this is coastal staff.
Okay.
So so at this point in time, it's important to have staff behind you, and it sounds like they're a lot more amenable than the other staff has been in the past. So
Good.
it's a win. That's a change. That's a good change.
And that sounds good and crucial.
Right.
The only other thing I would add in your conversation is, yes, you have used the Morro Bay zip code. Those of us down in Los Osos would like to be included in that too, because we are locals as well. So it'll be interesting to see how we form those exceptions. Who gets a permit, who doesn't.
Right, and that's one of the things that I originally was thinking, hey, let's just do the 934 area code. Anybody who has the first 3934, and that goes from Lompoc up to Santa Margarita, I think. And so it includes Paso, Atascadero, San Luis Obispo, Los Osos, and Avila. But you know, as far as that goes, one person suggested that you don't want to discriminate, and that's why the people in 93442 are paying property taxes. So indeed, they're already putting in their contribution.
Yeah, I see your point.
But anybody who wants to visit, you can buy a set price for an annual pass, which gets you unlimited. And so.
Well, that's progress that we're going in that direction.
Right. What that number will be, it's to be decided.
The idea that Morro Bay resident people were going to have to pay too, had Morro Bay people just going absolutely no. So this is the way to, yes, running down the street like this. So, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. All right, Jean?
Yeah, would any of that money generated from the Rock parking lot go towards infrastructure?
That would be to be decided, but as far as what I've experienced with Coastal is that if you're going to do something like that, then it needs to go towards the health and safety of the use of the area that you're charging for. So it could possibly, but to be decided. But I know that it would, anyway, it might go for the city, but I would assume that it should really be all written in that way that I would want it to be is, and I think most of us on HAB would think that it would want to go back into the recreational area of the Rock.
Okay, my next question would be, has to do with the selections for the permit. How about the people who have businesses in Morro Bay? I would assume that they would need to be able to get a free pass or $10 pass also. Business owners.
Those are all good questions, and I'll write them down. So, business owners in Morro Bay that don't live here.
I think, Gene, what we'll well, we haven't really talked this through yet because we're just brainstorming, but just we did write a report for around in and around the Embarcadero, so we kind of put it into one big Word document, and we're basically gonna mind meld with Charisse and just get it on paper and let everybody look at it and provide it as a recommendation and see the money stays, we put an arm in, grant whatever exceptions that we think would be legitimate to sell it.
Right. I do know that with people have been talking about property taxes and being a person who has property in Morro Bay but doesn't live in Morro Bay. That's a good question. I'll ask around about that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any? Jeremiah.
There we go. Yeah, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in, Teresa. I have been taking around or had available with me that tax bill that it's a $120 tax for the waterfront. It's a property owner tax, parcel tax.
Hey, can I ask a question really quick? I was talking to someone today, and I know that Eric has brought it up before, and I just don't want to step on the toes as far as this goes, because we're not supposed to take a stance at this time. So Eric, you have any words of advice about how to handle this since it's still not a ballot item?
Well, regarding that citizens property tax initiative going around, we shouldn't be talking about it at all because it's not on the agenda. And I'm gonna be jumping in. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
So I can just leave that out. Sorry, I put that in there. I didn't realize it was illegal.
It's not illegal. It's just
it's
not something we've agendized to talk about.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm sorry, my fault. But anyways, so I was talking to people about the issue of financing for the waterfront, and you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter. The waterfront needs money. That's the issue, and it's got to be found. And so the people who are against some of the things that I was talking about, many of them said that they wished it was some way to transfer the debt from a parcel tax to a tax somehow on the tourist industry that uses so much of our resource and uses it at our expense. And many of them suggested what you had mentioned as a kiosk at the Rock, and it sounds to me like a way to do it. I'm not for something like that normally, but it sounds like a good idea, Charisse. And a lot of the people I talked to thought so too.
All right, thank you so much, Jeremiah. So I believe everybody who had their hand up has been heard. There's nothing to decide on as far as this agenda item. It's just information, food for thought. And with that, I'm going to open public comment. James?
We have no hands raised, so you should be good.
All righty, thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on to the other item unless Lori tells me I'm supposed to do something else. Are we good to go to?
You're perfect. You're going.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So next up is item B2, update from the Marine Services Ad Hoc Committee on committee's recent activities. And the chair for that is Member Vale. And
just to state it over again, yes, we will be talking to our local little boat yard. Yes, I need to sit down with Eric and scale some of this stuff out because I was chasing the other project time to get closer to reality. But there is we have not had any meetings. We've been more dealing with parking and wandering around and passing out stickers. So that's it for tonight.
Okay, thank you. I am not on this subcommittee, but I did want to ask Eric, as far as this goes, do you know, as far as the Morro Bay Boatyard on 261 Main Street, do we know what their abilities are as far as like vessels and what it is that they can accomplish right now?
In terms of physically what the boatyard can do?
Yes. It's like how big of a boat can they take out? You know, because I know that like the Chablis is out there in the parking lot because there's no place for it to be taken out. And I know that when I had my boat and I had to do my pintons and gudgeons, I was told that the only place to take it out is in Avila. So I'm just wondering, because I didn't know about this boatyard, what is it that they can do right now? Who can they service?
30 to 35 feet is generally their limit. They can, Gene might know more, they can get bigger boats in there, but very limited because they've got such little space in there to deal with. And their hoist is limited in its capacity. They're a one boat at a time yard, basically, unless it's like really tiny boats.
All right, Chris, you had something?
Well, just quickly, that's I already said Cal and I are going to go down there and sit down with the owners and figure this out so that when we come back to our next meeting, all of the questions that are floating in your head right now, Charisse, we will be answering. How many boats, how long, what's the hoist capacity, what's the space? I haven't worked on a boat there in 45 years, but it seems to me as far as boatyards go, it's postage stamp. But if with a little bit of patience, you'll have all of the information you need, including what they charge and how feasible it is for most folks to use it at our next meeting.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll look forward to that in May. Okay, so we will open public comment for item B2. James, we got anybody in the queue?
Nope, you're good to go.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item B3, we have update from the Finance and Budget Ad Hoc Committee and consideration of Harbor Department funding request options for Measure E sales tax revenues for the fiscal year 22-23 budget. And Eric or Mary, I believe you're the chair. Who wants to take this away?
I can provide the update. So yeah, the finance subcommittee has been working on two things. I'll say the first or the second first, since it's shorter. We're looking into an additional port grant that's due by March 16th, and opportunities to receive funding through that for specifically for revenues lost during COVID. And then the first thing that we worked on were some line items that potentially impact public safety and cleanliness that we might propose using Measure E funding for. So that's what you'll see in that attachment.
All right, great. And so Eric, do you want to lead us off in the funding request options that you put together?
Sure. So as we were just starting to go into the next fiscal year's budgeting process, starting to work with finance, and they're developing process and how we're all going to get through it and all the timeline. And we're basically just starting to head into it, and departments are starting to put together their annual budgets for next year. There's a lot of moving parts to that. A new moving part for us has been the sales tax money with Measure E being implemented. And last year, the council granting us about $200,000 in money from the Measure Q and E fund. Those two measures combined, Measure Q is a 0.5 cent sales tax in the city of Morro Bay, and Measure E is a 1%, and together they generate about $4 million a year. This year's a little less, but they're projecting for next year to generate about $4 million per year. And so each department puts in their requests. Last year was the last year we were availed to that we were able to do that. We've always relied only on our lease and user fees. We've never been able to get any kind of sales tax or TOT. So it was nice that the city council opened that up and allowed us to do that. So we applied last spring and put in $80,000 and got it to run basically pay for our beach lifeguard program, which obviously fits the public safety part. The council's wish and CFAC, the Citizens Finance Advisory Committee that oversees Measure Q and advises the council on Measure Q and Measure E funding, we kept their wishes, and the council's wishes were to keep the spending in line with what the measures wording. Obviously, there's a legal part to that, but there's also a spirit part to that. And the city did a bunch of polling when it put Measure E in place, when it put it on the ballot, and that polling mostly revolved around, the results mostly revolved around public safety and cleanliness, and not just on the waterfront, but throughout the city, at least for the things that applied directly to us. And so we applied for $80,000 to do our beach lifeguard program. We were granted that. $70,000 for our ongoing costs for Morro Bay Garbage Company. That's basically all the dumpsters and public trash cans you see all over the waterfront. That bill's about $70,000 a year and not shrinking. It's growing every year, obviously. And then we got $50,000 in one-time funding to go towards paying for our fire pump system that's going in the new patrol boat that we acquired from Port San Luis. So as with this budget right around the corner, we're starting into, like I say, all the elements that includes, including now for us, Measure E. We worked with the committee, with Mary and Cal and Sean, and sat down a couple times and kind of identified some things that might fit into those categories, which are the attachment to your staff report. The ongoing things, we identified some one time on here too. So we put them up here for the Harbor Advisory Board's consideration. We really only prioritized the first two, which are the two that are on the list now, that were funded now. I'm going to ask for that again. But you know, we'll see how the process plays out. Obviously, it's, you know, there's other needs for this money with police and fire and public works. And so, you know, it's a limited budget. Although $4 million is a lot of money, it's still limited. And so we're just going to have to see how the whole process plays out. So we thought we'd get the Harbor Advisory Board to weigh in on some of these and maybe prioritize, you know, maybe what our top 5 are or whatnot. So that's really kind of the bottom line. And I thank Mary and Cal and Sean for helping out on this. And we'll just see where it goes and as it goes through the budget process.
Okay, so we are tasked with first brainstorming other ideas that perhaps the budget committee didn't come up with, and then once we put all those together, identify if they are things that we want to bring forth, and then further prioritize the ones that we come up with as well as the budget committee came up with. So
probably, Sharice, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but probably the best way to get through this, because it can just be a big smorgasbord where we just go talk about them, but I want to make sure we're spending our time effectively. Probably if there's any other ideas out there, because I'd hate to go through a process and look at everything at the end and somebody, well, what about this? And that becomes the greatest thing. And you got to start the process all over. So.
Right. So that's why I was saying brainstorm first. I was going to go to each person and see if they had any recommendations to add to the list.
Perfect.
Okay. So, and on this subcommittee, I'm still going to go over everybody just in case they came up with something before you made this or after you made this list. So I'll just go down the line. I'll start with Member Vale. Do you have any additions?
No.
All right, thank you. And Mary, you were on the committee. Did you have any new ones that you were thinking about?
Nope.
All right, moving down. Member Dowdy, do you have any?
Oh, I would say some of the deferred maintenance on the slips should be included somewhere.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Some of the deferred maintenance on some of the slips.
Okay. And Eric, does that meet the criteria for Measure E?
Well, so the two categories again are public safety and cleanliness. We added a couple of things onto the list, like North Key Pier fire system. You know, that's not really a cleanliness thing. It's not really a public safety thing like lifeguard program, but we thought because it's a fire system, it protects the North Key Pier, and also because the Coast Guard and Harbor Patrol boats are there, and had a direct tie. Deferred slip maintenance. Sure, there's a safety element there if you've got something wrong, that a trip, fall, other issue. I don't know how directly that matches the public safety wish. I think the public safety part was more in line with what police, fire, and harbor patrol do from serving the public standpoint, rather than the all our facilities and maintaining them standpoint.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I just tossed it out.
Okay. All good things that need to happen though, so it's on the list. And Member O'Brien.
Yeah, primarily I was gonna say the same as Gene just did, and I'd just like to add that I know what you mean by that type of public safety, but there's obviously more than one type of public safety, and having safe walkable slips and docks of any kind is certainly public safety for the people.
Right.
So I would hope that falls under public safety of some kind. That's all.
Okay, perfect. And Member Myers. Oh wait, I'm going. Wait, no, I did that right. Okay, so Member Myers. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we went through in the committee, in the meeting, and with Top Dog after our All Express. I think we did a pretty good job of trying to filter it for the public safety, the spirit of Measure E and Measure Q. There's a lot of things to spend money on, so I don't see any additions at this point.
Okay, thank you. And Member Green.
Yeah, fairly similar to what Cal had to say. That this is general fund money, and the Harbor Enterprise Fund is a separate entity, and so I think we tried to do our best to prioritize things that are on one side of the line, are more likely to be kind of accepted and embraced by council and the people in general.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I have my ideas. What about the walk to Widow Walls? Is that something that could possibly be added to the list as far as public safety and cleanliness goes? So I'll add that. I call it Baby Beach, so the walkway there. And I also wrote down city-owned harbor walk spots. So like the area in between Great American Fish Company to DeGaramore's property, there's a little stretch there. And then there's a couple other stretches that are not up to the waterfront master plan and could possibly be considered unsafe, and would be a benefit to the public if they were brought up to code with the waterfront master plan. So, so those are the ones that I've added. Eric, do you think either one of those is something that would fall into that? Oh, and then I was wondering, I didn't see the bathroom at the Rock. Is there a reason why the bathroom at the Rock wasn't included?
I think there was a conscious reason. It's the newest bathroom, newest restroom.
Yeah. We just prioritized. We picked the one by next to Eric's office because it's the most beat.
Yeah, I think we looked at it from a need standpoint, and if it was limited and we had to choose one restroom or two, okay, there's other ones are going to beat out the Rock.
Okay. All right. I see, Sean, you have your hand
Yeah,
raised.
I think whether or not they make the list, I think Sharice's suggestions and Jean's and Jeremiah's are good to document on the list wherever they fall above or below the line, because there's also an opportunity probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks to pitch some of these same ideas regarding Vistra development. So it's great to get them on the list either way.
I have a question for the committee. So I know that it only says 1 and 2 as far as priorities, but was there any direction as far as writing it down that at least it was listed in your committee's recommendation for prioritization, or are they random?
I feel like they're like generally stack ranked. So if you have any, like you think something should be higher on the list than another thing, we could talk about that.
Okay. Oh boy, here we go. Any suggestions on how to put this all together? Is there anyone who feels that any of these are definitely the number 3? Or have a better idea of how to format this? If we add the deferred slip maintenance, add widow walls, walk path. I guess we're going to take off the rock bathroom, I understand, and then the harbor walk continuation of city. So does anybody want to raise their hand and say that as far as the ones that haven't been prioritized, they definitely take on the next spot?
And I would recommend maybe see what the next 2 are, the next 2 highest priorities are, and take that bite, and we'll see what the number results in, and compared to the first 2, and then maybe that can lead to some kind of discussion. I mean, I don't think we need to rank all 12 or however many they are from 1 to 12, but I think the top X number, and maybe we just take them a couple at a time and get everybody's agreement on that if we can, and see where that goes.
Okay.
My suggestion.
Therese?
Jean.
Yeah, I would recommend the North T Pier fire system. That to me is more important than anything else at this point.
Okay.
I mean, I was here when we had the South T fire, and it was not pretty. So I'd say a new fire line.
That I feel with fire safety, that's a good ask. And does anybody, we have like 3 bathrooms on here. Eric, is there one that's definitely like worse than the others? Because we don't want to all do construction on all 3 of them at the same time. So is there a priority? It sounds like the one right next to you might be the one in the worst shape, but then I know the one down at Tidelands gets pretty beat up, and that's where a lot of the liveaboards utilize that as well. Is there?
I think probably the one next to us, the North T Pier restroom, is probably the worst. It's the oldest. It's got the least amount of ADA accessibility. Its construction is probably the least clean, or at least the least able to keep cleaned and maintained. So that's probably the worst one.
Tidelands Pier is more of the people that use it than the construction, it seems.
Right. Okay, so anybody else have a 3 or 4 that they feel strongly about, that they want to raise their hand and suggest? Okay, I see, well, Cal, you're talking. You want to go next? Your hand's up.
Yeah, the fire suppression system, I think, is kind of to me the number 3 thing, especially because that pier has the harbor, both the harbor patrol and the Coast Guard boats. So,
And a number 4 for you?
the bathroom.
Okay, and so I'm gonna do that. Okay, and Sean?
Yeah, I'm okay with Gene's number 3, and basically having Eric choose one of the bathrooms, which it sounds like it's going to be the one next to Harbor, as a number 4. I do think that sort of strategizing with council here and identifying what is maybe most likely also has to be a factor in addition to what the priority is. So I do think that the very last item, some sort of half an FTE or 1 FTE that's a maintenance trash collection person is, because that kind of bleeds into public works, that if we ask for that and split it with public works, I think that's maybe a good number 5.
Okay. Let's see. So we got launch ramp, reserve harbor.
What if we do that, Sharice, and just like Eric could present it as like, hey, these are our top 5 and the rest are options depending on how much money you think is available and like what speaks to the city council.
Right. The one thing that I'm thinking, because they're supposed to get 4 million, and last year we received 160,000. I do know that the funds went largely to the fire department and to the police department. Eric, can you tell us, were those one-time requests or were those going to be ongoing for the majority of the money to go to those parts of the city?
They were a combo. I apologize, I don't have that right in front of me, but they were a combination. There was a pretty equal mix probably of ongoing and one time, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Well, from what I see right now, from what everybody said, our number 3, 4, and 5 look to be North T Pier fire system and public restroom North T Pier, and then the maintenance aid for cleanliness for number 5. If anybody wants to make a motion, we can set those in stone as our top 5. All right, Sean or Jeremiah, did you have a question or do you want to make a motion?
I just wanted to mention that we should probably include that given the amount of money that we received last year, and if they have ongoing expenses, I'm sure they have another one time or 2 or 3 of them, the fire and the police department. So if we're not getting that much, then we should include, if you're going to put something like the restroom down, maybe a cut. See, not looking for the whole amount, just a contribution towards, or 100,000 towards that, or $250,000 towards that direction, or something like that. So just so that something might come out of it, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like we're going to get that much out of it. I can see the police and fire department taking.
Right. One of the things that I was thinking about is that we've been trying to find all these different ways to work, have money to work on the infrastructure and to do things like this. And unfortunately, the RV program has had its negatives, and paid parking doesn't look like it's going to happen extremely quickly, and it's only going to maintain itself. And there's other things, that we can't increase. And so I feel like we should ask for show it all, because we don't have the budget to do these things. So if it needs to happen, I think we should ask. So even though we might not get all of the things on the list, at least showing what it is that could feasibly be working. So I personally feel like we should show them the whole list and then let them decide, but prioritize it. So if everybody else feels, I didn't say like by saying 3, 4, and 5 that we're going to stop there. I think we should keep going. So anyway, and hopefully there's more money there.
Yeah, I didn't mean, sorry, but I did not mean, what I meant was if we put in, I don't know what a restroom costs, probably 4 or 5 million, or Eric would probably know, and probably more than that. But in any case, kind of what I meant was if they say, oh, 5 million, well, we'll throw that out right away. Well, no, whoa, don't throw it out. Just kick in $250,000 towards it. You know, that's fine. Don't throw it away. Just put a little pile on top of it. Oh, yeah,
Right.
I think we should go for whatever. But I do recognize the needs of the police and fire department. So
Of course, yeah.
I'll be there to help you fight.
All right, Sean?
Yeah, I agree with Jeremiah that I think putting $200,000 or $250,000 next to each one of those bathrooms, and then just prioritizing or elevating the one next to Harbor, and then dropping the other 2 down low, just so that, because TBD is pretty easy to ignore. And if that one maintenance aid item that we're putting to number 5 is really a half-time FTE, we probably need to raise that to $75,000 as opposed to $25,000, and that gives us more solid figures from which folks can choose.
Okay, well that, if I'm understanding correctly, adding an amount value to it is another facet of this part. So if we can, let's keep prioritizing the ones, and then
Okay.
Eric, perhaps you can, once we prioritize them, kind of put a figure, a closer approximation of what the amount you'd be asking for would be. Is that possible?
And I mean, process-wise, you know, you providing the input, and, you know, as long as we have consensus, you know, and there's no big argument, and everyone's generally, yeah, I like that idea, Sean, or no major argument about it, we'll make note of it and certainly add that to the process when we do it. I don't need to vote specifically on every single one of these, you know, every suggestion Sean made, or the one Jeremiah made, the one Gene made. You might, you know, let's say do the top 5. I like that idea of prioritizing the top 5. That gives some sense of urgency to it, to the CFAC and to the council. But you know, if you've got good suggestions for making this list better, I'm certainly going to add them, even if you don't vote or everyone isn't shaking their heads on them. I'll add things that make sense. Appreciate the input.
All right, so we have if anybody wants to make, like, somebody should make a motion unless for item 3 or number 3 to be North T Pier, number 4 to be North T Pier restroom, and cleanliness number 5. And Cal.
Yeah, I was just actually going to formulate that one, but I would make a motion to include the top 5, the 2 that are already there, and the 3 additional ones that you just went through, the T-pier, the bathroom, and what was the 5th one?
Cleanliness maintenance aid.
Maintenance aid. So I put that forward as a motion.
You just did.
And a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll make those, which leads us, where we could just do, Lori, we can just do a vote at the end of all this, right?
Do you have more discussion?
Yeah, we're gonna go for number 6, 7, and 8.
Well, I would vote, unless you're going to change your motion, amend your motion, I would vote on this motion.
All right, okay.
Unless you're going to amend it.
Yeah, I would close
Want to do
that
a
one
vote?
out. Close the loop on it.
Member Witkowski,
Yes.
Member Vale,
Yes.
Member O'Brien,
Yes.
Member Myers,
Yes.
Member Green,
Yes.
Member Dowdy,
Did we have to ask for public input first?
Great point, Gina. I was looking over at the attendee list and we've got nobody in the queue, so it's all just us.
Okay, I agree. Yes.
Member Hanson.
Yes, and I won't forget next time. Thank you, Jean. Okay, so now we're gonna do 6, 7, and 8, and I think we could call it good there. For 6, we still have on the list launch ramp, Reserve Harbor Patrol Officer Program, the other 2 bathrooms, deferred maintenance on slips, widow walls, walkway, and harbor walk continued on city property.
Do we want to rank them or just like bucketize them?
Yeah, who would, what looks like a number 6 and what looks like a number 7 to anybody who wants to speak up?
Well, I'll say number 6 should be Public Safety Reserve Harbor Patrol Officer. Number 7 should be launch ramp.
Okay. How about hands for anybody else that thinks Reserve Harbor Patrol Officer Program looks like the next one? Agree to that. Sean, you have your hand up.
I agree with both of those.
Okay, so 6 and 7. And Cal, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of them sort of fall into, I think, nice to have. I mean, I think, if we get through the other 6 or 7, we could definitely look at those, but I think now they feel further away, so they're not imminent, maybe a 2024 thing even.
Okay. And okay, so we got 6 and 7, and knowing the prioritization of the bathrooms, Eric, it sounds like the next bathroom that would be important to work on would be Tidelands over Centennial Parkway. And is that your consensus?
I don't know. It's a great question. Probably in the selfish sense that Tideland serves boaters more than Centennial does. Centennial definitely serves all the launch ramp users, which are obviously important, and all the boaters, which is our direct, our main thing, right, is the bay and boats. So that one probably elevates a little higher to me than Centennial.
Then I would suggest that number 8 would go to the Tidelands bathroom if we want to kind of stagger the bathrooms. So 6 being Reserve Harbor, 7 being launch ramp, 8 being public restroom, and 9 being the next restroom, since that's what the committee. And as far as throwing in a number 10 into the system, does anybody out of the ones that during the brainstorming session feel that we should have a number 10 be any of the suggestions? Okay, Sean, I see your hand up.
I don't know if I would specifically reference the section that Cherise talked about, but some effort towards a harbor walk completion, I do think has some traction generally. And I know that there's also some leaseholders that have dollar contributions that have to go into that pool as well. And so perhaps there's an opportunity to pool efforts for the greater good there.
Oh, Chris.
Am I up?
Yeah. Yes.
I just lost in the number of spots we're talking about. There is a bathroom over near the triangle lot, sort of tucked away against the bluff over there. And I don't hear it mentioned in any of this. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's in that lift station, in the backside of that lift station. It's a single
Yeah.
door, single stall.
Yeah, I've never even been in the thing. I just have heard
It's
complaints, and then I
ADA.
didn't hear about it in this conference.
It's ADA, it's relatively new, 3 years old when they rebuilt that lift station maybe, so it's in pretty good shape.
Okay, that's
Um,
fine.
And it's way on the wrong side of the road.
That's crazy over there. It's its own hidden spot.
All right, Jeremiah, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, the language on that probably should read something like maintenance and replacement of restroom or restrooms. Just to leave it to, I would think we'd leave it to the harbor department or ultimately to Eric, which is in the most need. They're there daily. I'm sure the need changes from time to time, which one gets used more or what have you. But I just leave it to Eric to replace, if he had the funds to do it, to replace what was necessary.
All righty, and I'm gonna go down and see if there's any more discussion. In what I feel is that since we've put this in as far as deferred maintenance slips and Widow Walls walkway, I'd like to keep it on and so continue to prioritize. So I think we still need a 10 and 11 and 12. So the next time that we have an ask, these will still be on the list for the next year for HAB to prioritize again and to look at, so we don't leave it off and forget about it. So for 10, it sounds like that was important to Member Green. So unless somebody else says otherwise, I'm going to throw that in at 10. And I know, Jean, you were talking about the slips. So I know that you find that important. And then Widow Walls walkway, the posts in the ground, you can give you tetanus, and there's always maintenance that needs to be over there as far as like rocks falling. And it used to be a drive area, and I honestly don't feel that it's the safest walkway, and it could be a lot better. And when the big waves are out there, people walk all over it. There's tons and tons of people that go out there in a day to go and look at the big waves. And as far as safety goes, I think it is a possible ask. So if anybody.
Cerise,
Yes.
Is that state park property?
Eric?
State Parks owns, I'm gonna look. Yes, a good portion of it. I think the state park is out from the rock down. Yeah, probably the whole parking lot and maybe up to the edge of the revetment.
Are they the ones that close the gate? Or they have the jurisdiction of that gate?
Well, we jointly work with them to decide when it's closed all the time now, and that's ultimately their decision.
I thought it went to the top of the revetment.
Well, I'm gonna do a sort of a ghetto share here. There's the property line. So yeah, they've got it all. It's all state parks.
Yeah.
That's down to the beach almost.
All right, so would that, because it's state park, take that out of the ask for using city funds to?
Well, it could be, the way it would be done, if the city was interested in that, would partner with state parks if it's something they agreed with, which I wouldn't put out of the question. They're always wanting to improve their properties. If they wanted to approve it because they don't have any funding for it, yet we came up with the funding, I would imagine it's possible to come up with some kind of an agreement where, we fund it, but it's their property, and I don't know how probable that is, but it's probably possible.
I think it's a good idea, Sharice. I just want to know who owned it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Good to know that we're, maintaining other people's property, but it's ours too. Okay, so anyway, because this is a long motion, and I'm just gonna pose it, and if somebody wants to second, or then we'll take a vote on it. But before, can I make the motion before and then do public comment?
No.
No, public comment now?
Yeah, you probably ought to do public comment.
Okay. James, do we have anyone who would like to speak in the
Nope,
public?
you're all clear.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other hands raised, so I'm just gonna take all the information I got, which we stopped at 5. So number 6 being Reserve Harbor Patrol Officer Program. Number 7, launch ramp. Number 8, Tidelands Park restroom. Number 9, Centennial Park restroom. Number 10, continuing of Harbor Walk, that's city-owned property. 11, deferred slip maintenance. And 12, Widow Walls walkway. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Sharice.
Thank you. And Lori, do you want to do a vote?
Member Witkowski,
Unfortunately, Mary had to drop. She had a family emergency and had to drop off the call. Kids sick.
Member Vale,
Yes.
Member O'Brien,
Yes.
Member Myers,
Yes.
Member Green,
Yes.
Member Dowdy,
Yes.
and Member Hanson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, wonderful. All right. What time is it? 6:58. Okay, so our last agenda item, which is B4, Harbor Advisory Board Member Public Engagement Outreach Assignment Reporting. I'll go down the line, and if you have anything to share that you discussed with the outreach, you're on. So, Member O'Brien.
I think I said most of my piece earlier, but I'm just going to add to that it's imperative that we come up with some way to fund the harbor for the resources they need. I think that the harbor over the years has done a terrific job of managing the resources they had to work with, and I think just caught up to them. So it's imperative that we get the people in Morro Bay to be aware of the need, and hopefully we'll come up with a solution to feed that need one way or another. But it's something we've really, really got to take serious. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Member O'Brien. Member Myers.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Member Dowdy.
Yeah, I spoke to the maritime company today. Looks like things are doing fine out there. Lots of eelgrass is growing where they'd hoped to put in more oysters. So they have to redefine where they're going to be growing their oysters. There's been a lot of mud moving around from these high tides and low tides. And the supply chain for getting the new oysters and things are kind of lagging behind because of the pandemic. So now that the restaurants are opening back up again, they have supplies right now to meet those demands, but to get all the young new oysters who are coming back in, they're having a hard time. So it'll be a couple of months before everything's up and running smoothly. But they all look like they're doing fine. That's it.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Member Vale.
I've got nothing.
Okay, Member Green.
So I teach at Cal Poly, and I'm always trying to work with students on Morro Bay related issues and try to get them informed about Morro Bay, or at least curious about Morro Bay. So they've been coming more and more out to our shoreline and learning about the things that are popular in town, or contentious, or whatever that might be. And it's been really entertaining for me too, to see what they come back and with, and in terms of their what their experience was. So I just wanted to throw out to all of you and anyone who's listening, if you see an opportunity for something that a class that you might see value in a class working on. My students are writing students, but they are also of all different majors with diverse skill sets, and they're super competent at what they do, and they are always eager to do any kind of project that has practical implications rather than some writing assignment in a vacuum. So if you have something in mind that seems like it could be an assignment, feel free to reach out to me. Those are the kinds of things that I incorporate, with maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks lead time, depending on the scope of the project. So feel free to reach out, any of you and anyone at home.
All right, wonderful. I actually have one. I'll talk to you about it later. Jeremiah, you have your hand up?
Yes. Yeah, I'm very sorry. I was really lax in mentioning down at the museum there, the Morro Bay Maritime Museum, they have received a gift of a periscope. It's on the Great Lakes. The big bronze unit weighs 1,500 pounds, and it's 12 feet long. So in case one of you guys were going to the Great Lakes in the near future and had a long bed pickup or something. But anyway, so that's a nice gift. So now, of course, the logistics come in. So it's there and we're here. So somehow get it here. And also the dragon boat, the old dragon boat, has been donated to the museum. So that'll be a little piece of history to have located there. So I think that's all. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Jeremiah. Which leads to me. I actually did a lot of activity this week, or this month, and this week. I met with the master leaseholders. We talked about a lot of the items that we discussed today in preparation. They're the ones, one of them brought up the portion of the Harbor Walk that I feel like we kind of glossed over. I mean, we talked about Tognazini's and Gio's, but when I actually walked it the other day, I realized that there's actually quite a few spots where it truncates in, it's older, the railings could get some maintenance done, and those are all city-owned properties. So master leaseholders noticed that, and if they're making the effort or paying the money to do their nice harbor walk, I really think that a bucket list for people to do the harbor walk and for it to look continuous is on all of us. So it is an important aspect of that. And they brought up different things such as property management, and that they wanted to look into the new leases and revenue. Talk to them about marketing, as far as like a property manager would do marketing, and it's always been something that we've thought about and something that I've talked about with like taking 1% to 2% of the harbor lease revenue. They were skeptical about if the harbor department used it towards marketing, would it be very effective? And so they would want a little bit of a say in where it is that this money would go to. So it's not just going down the drain, it's actually going to something that would be effective. And a couple of them brought up the fact that we don't have events, mostly due to COVID. But one thing that we used to have that used to put us on the map for July 4th is fireworks. And we haven't had them for many years now. And I know firsthand that July 4th used to be my best weekend of the entire year. And for like the last 6 years, I believe, it's been like just a blip of like a weekday in the summer. We're not busy. So they were thinking that as far as any money that would go to marketing, they would want events to kick back up again, and would be interested in suggesting those things, and even possibly being part of the suggestion process, like an advise, they would put in their 2 cents. The EML, Embarcadero Master Leaseholders Group, might have a little bit of a say in where that money would go to if there was a marketing portion of the revenue for the harbor department. I brought up my rock parking concept. That's other people's concepts too, in the full amount that I brought it up today. A lot of them said it was fantastic. It was great. So that was nice. And then they will be drafting a letter for the council and HAB to consider their positions on these current events and goals. So we'll hear from them again as far as a lot of the things that we're working on. Boop, boop, boop. And then there's a couple of master leaseholders that are really concerned about Measure D and are interested in working with the fishermen group to have an amendment that would make everybody happy. And if that was be anything that anybody would be interested in, Jeremiah, to possibly have a sit-down meeting with a lot of the master leaseholders, or especially the ones that are in that general area, to talk about how it could be amended to benefit everybody and be fair across the board. So that's what they were up to. Again, as far as this outreach group, please think about presentations. And I look forward to anybody who has any ideas about somebody who'd want to come and do a presentation. Member Vale, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just quickly, because I don't know anything about this part of it. What is the simple nature of the amendments the master leaseholders would be interested in concerning Measure D?
That's a good question. It's a little more than I can go into at this particular moment in time, but
I know where to find you.
Yeah. And Eric's always a good one to ask as well. But yeah, no, I would be, it would be great to include you, and you could meet some of the master leaseholders too, they just want it to be fair across the block that is Measure D territory, that has businesses and has fishermen, and I understand where they're coming from. So it would be nice to get the group together in a room, because Measure D should absolutely positively benefit fishermen, and I am steadfast and true on that. But it also needs to be fair among the business owners that are affected by it. So any other questions or inclusions for the outreach group conversation? Seeing none, I'll just move on to our next, which is future agenda items. Would anybody like to request a future agenda item? So Sean, Member Green, you brought up public benefits, a menu of public benefits. Is this something that maybe you would like to bring forth? I noticed you talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked previously about having it be a possible agenda item today, but it wasn't going to be ready because it has to be talked about at the planning commission level first. But I could very easily see it being ready to discuss at our next meeting, which I think is 2 months away, right? So yeah, I mean, if people are, if that's something that people want to have a discussion about, I think that would be a fine agenda item to talk about. Maybe public benefits in general, and or specifically Vistra and how that could apply. But I also don't want to speak out of turn because it hasn't come up at the planning commission level yet, and that's what the subcommittee was focused on first. But I think it will probably be ready in 2 months.
Yeah, so for future agenda items, it doesn't necessarily mean that it would go on it. And if once we're making the next agenda, we'll ask, you know, if it's a public document yet that's released out, so we could take a look at it, or if you can actually have it for an agenda item. I just want to get it on the books
Sure.
as far as a possibility, so it's there for us to use for the next few meetings or whatnot.
Yeah. Let's go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so if you so Lori, I've actually never voted on a future agenda item. So
Sharice, I don't mean to interrupt, but at the last meeting, we did do a Vista Battery Community Benefits declared future agenda item.
Okay.
Oh,
So
you did.
I think we're covered if that's what you're
Okay.
talking about.
Okay, good. All right, then I didn't see any other hands as far as a future agenda. Oh, there's Eric.
I just wanted, you were asking the question, and Lori, thanks for clarifying. Future agenda, the way it works, if somebody brings it up and there's no support amongst anybody else, if there's support of one other person, then I think, I'll have to look at bylaws, but I think the support of one other person, but no more, then whoever brought it up is responsible for writing the staff report and doing whatever research and bringing it to the board. If there's more than two, then it becomes a staff responsibility like any normal agenda item. And if there's no other support from anybody else, then it goes nowhere. So you don't need to vote on it. You don't need to make a motion and vote. It's just, you look around the room and, hey, do we have support for that? And everybody's kind of going, yeah. But if there's a discussion and half the people don't like it, but a couple do, then you got to start figuring out how many you've got. But you still don't need to take a vote, but you need to determine kind of what the numbers are.
Okay. So it's already agenda or future on the future agenda list, so that's good.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? All right, I think we are concluded for this evening. Thank you for a successful March meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
In May.
Bye, thank
See
you.
you
Yeah,
soon.
see you May.
Good job, Sharice.
Thank you, Chris.
Very good.
I'm leaving.